All right, let's delve into the world of solving absolute value inequalities. And the first thing that you're going to see when we start figuring these out is that our answers are going to take one of two forms. Either, if this is my number line, either my answer is going to end up looking like this, like an OR type problem, an OR compound inequality problem, or the answer is going to end up looking like this, like an AND compound inequality problem. So these are the two types of answers that you're generally going to get, and which type will depend on the problem. So one of the things I want to mention is, again, we're going to use that vocabulary that we were practicing with absolute value equations. It's going to make this super easy. Now, this sheet right here, it talks about a rule. And it's like you need to memorize which rule you're going to use. When are you going to write it in and when are you going to write it in or? This is the way that I learned how to do this many, many moons ago. But again, I memorized the rule. My teacher really didn't tell me why, but I memorized it. I took the test, I did fine, and then I purged the rule from my head because it was just a rule that meant nothing. We're going to talk about not using this rule, but talking about what the problem looks like, just like we did with absolute value equations. And you're not going to have to memorize the rule. If you have the vocabulary down, you're going to be able to reason out this problem like with every problem, and it's going to make it so much easier. So let's go ahead and start with this problem right here. We have the absolute value of 2x minus 6 plus 3 is greater than 19. Just like we did with the equations, we want to isolate our absolute value first. We want to get the absolute value on one side of the inequality and the numbers or whatever on the other side. So I'm going to subtract 3, and I have the absolute value of 2x minus 6 is going to be greater than 16. Okay, I've isolated my absolute value. Let's go ahead and draw a number line and talk about what this means. Here is 0. I know that absolute value is the distance away from 0. And I know that this value has to be more than 16 units away from 0. So where does that put me? If I start at 0 and I go 16 units here, that leaves me here. And if I go 16 units in this direction, that leaves me here. I know that this value has to be more than 16 units away. That means I keep having to walk out this way. So that means I'm looking at these numbers. Anything bigger than 16, that should be open, not closed. And anything smaller than negative 16. Okay, and I know that this value is 2x minus 6, and 2x minus 6 is this way. Now, just like I had one with equations, I'm going to write two different inequalities to solve using this picture. I know that 2x minus 6 has to be smaller than negative 16. And I know that 2x minus 6 has to be bigger than positive 16. Those are my two inequalities that I'm going to solve. So I'm going to go ahead and solve them now. 2x is less than negative 10. X is less than negative 5. And 2x is greater than 22. X is greater than 11. So I have this, and I have this. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to write that on a number line. Here's 0, here's 11, here's negative 5. Not quite to scale, but close enough. I'm going to have an open circle, and x is smaller than negative 5, so it's all of these values. Open circle, x is bigger or greater than 11, so all of these values. So basically, I have an OR problem. I have anything that's smaller than negative 5 will make this inequality true. And anything that's bigger than 11 will make this inequality true. So let's go ahead and, I don't know, pick an example problem. Let's pick like negative 10. So I'm going to plug in negative 10 because negative 10 falls in this little range right here. 2 times negative 10 is negative 20. Negative 20 minus 6 is negative 26. The absolute value of negative 26 is positive 26. Positive 26 plus 3 is 29. Is 29 greater than 19? Yes, it is. I'm going to pick a value over here just to make sure I'm right. It has to be bigger than 11. Let's go 20 or 15. Let's go 15. And I'm using my calculator because I feel like it. 2 times 15 is 30. 30 minus 6 is 24. The absolute value of 24 is 24. 24 plus 3 is 27. Is 27 greater than 19? Yes, it is. So this right here would be your answer. You have an OR problem. So there we go. Let's go ahead. Now that one was a little more complicated because we had to isolate our variable or isolate our absolute value. We had to do some stuff. Let's go ahead and try some easier ones. Okay, solve these ones. X plus 2 is less than 3. So I'm going to go ahead and right over here, I'm going to go ahead and use my kind of number line. I know that this value has to be less than or fewer than 3 steps away from 0. So here's 3 steps in this direction. Here's 3 steps in this direction. Now, fewer, if I'm taking fewer than 3 steps, that means I'm in this area right here. This is the area that I'm living in. I'm not taking more than 3 steps because that would put me out in this direction. And I know that x plus 2 is here and x plus 2 is here. So now I'm going to use this to write my 2 inequalities. This right here. I know that x plus 2, well, it has to be bigger than negative 3. It has to be greater than negative 3. But I also know that x plus 2 has to be smaller than positive 3. So I have my 2 inequalities. I'm going to go ahead and solve these. X is greater than 1, and x is less than 1. Wait. Oh, sorry. That's a negative 5. Negative 3 and negative 2 is negative 5. Let's do that right. Now let's go ahead and graph these. X is bigger than negative 5, so that would be an open circle, and all of these numbers this way. All of these numbers all the way up into infinity. And x is smaller than 1, that would be an open circle, and that means all of these numbers all the way to negative infinity would work. But in this case, the numbers are coming this way. It's an and problem. I have to find where these numbers line up, where they overlap. This overlapping section is right here. So my final answer, this is getting a little bit messy, would be negative 5 to 1, open circle, and all of the numbers that are in between. So all of those numbers is going to make this true. I can combine this as well into one as well. I'm going to put it up here. Negative 5 is my smaller. My x values are in between like that. So I just took these two and I rewrote them into 1 because I know x has to be in between negative 5 and 1. Okay. It seems like a lot, but once you get the hang of it, it becomes a lot easier. Let's go ahead. This is a little bit messy. I would have put more room in here, but oh well. Let's take a look at number 2. Absolute value is not isolated, so we're going to isolate the absolute value. We're going to get the absolute value of x is less than 2. Okay, let's do my little number line. This means that the absolute value of, some number is smaller or fewer than 2 steps away from 0. So here would be positive 2 steps, and if I take 2 steps in this direction, it puts me here. And I know that x is living here, okay? Now I want x is fewer than 2 steps away from 0. Fewer means that it's living in this world right here. because I'm going up to 2 steps, not over. And really, if I were to write this, that means x is going to be greater than -2. And over here, x is less than +2. This is an and problem because we're living in the middle. I could write it down here as well. X is greater than -2, all of these. X is smaller than 2, all of these. It's where these overlap. So my final answer is -2 and 2, open circle, all of these in between. And I could check this. Let me pick a nice number that lies in this value. Let's take 0. Absolute value of 0 is 0. 0 plus 6 is 6. Is 6 smaller than 8? Yes, it is. Let's do one more for this video. Again, absolute value here, well, it's not isolated, so we have to isolate it. So we're gonna subtract 10, and we get our new little inequality here. Okay, how would I say this? This is saying a number is more than or equal to 1 step away from 0. A number is more than or equal to 1 step away from 0. So let me go ahead. 1 step in this direction would put me here. 1 step in this direction would put me here. Now, if I'm taking more than 1 step, that means I'm looking at all of these numbers, right? All of these are more than 1 step. It could be 1 step, 1 is included. More than 1 step in this direction would be all of these numbers. And x is right there. So if I were to write that as an inequality, that would mean x has to be smaller or equal to -1. Or right here, x has to be greater or bigger or equal to +1. So there's no way to combine these two into one statement like we did over here. There's no way. So we just have this like this or this. If I were writing it on a number line, basically it's gonna look like this, just a little nicer. Here's -1, it is closed because -1 works. X is smaller, so it's all of these numbers. Here's +1, +1 is closed because 1 works and it's all of these numbers. All right, let's see what you guys can do with 4, 5, 6, and 7, and I'll cover those on the next video.